Christmas Eve 2015 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a local woman is viciously attacked on one of the city's trails.
She was out for a run. She encountered somebody who tackled her to the ground and dragged her into the bushes and sexually assaulted her.
She must have been extremely scared. This is definitely an instance where someone's fight or flight instincts are gonna kick in, and fortunately for her, she had the instinct to get out of there as quickly as possible.
The survivor happens to be a talented artist and provides police with a sketch of the assailant.
That sketch became such a key piece of evidence, and I'll tell you, in my 20 years of doing this, it's the only one I've ever had. I've never had a victim do their own sketch of their offender. It was incredibly accurate.
One by one, the leads run dry. The survivor lives in fear that she may once again cross paths with the rapist.
It kind of hit me to say, you know what, I'm not satisfied with what we're doing. We have to do more because we have to find this person.
Then investigators hear of a remarkable emerging forensic technique that could help them break this case once and for all.
Forensic genetic genealogy is a game changer.
It makes me want to say to everybody out there hiding in the shadows, welcome to the new light of day. Genetic genealogy is here and it is not going away.
Criminals who have hidden in the shadows for years find there's no escaping science and their own family DNA. Welcome to Bloodline Detectives. Albuquerque, New Mexico, a vibrant city renowned for its multicultural charm and breathtaking natural landscapes.
Albuquerque is the largest city in the state of New Mexico. The metro area is probably 650, 700,000 people. It's got a really diverse population, sort of a unique and rich cultural history.
We have a large mix of Native Americans that have been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. A large Spanish population that also lived here for hundreds of years, mixed in with, over the past few decades, an emergence of technology, manufacturing, and national laboratories like Los Alamos, which was just in the movie Oppenheimer, and Intel computer chips has a big factory out here. So it's a big mix of lots of different generations of persons. We are a mid-sized American city, and we are not immune to what lots of cities face that have diversity of culture and people that move in and out with frequency.
If you ask the citizens of Albuquerque what is the one thing that is holding the community back, it's the inability to get a handle on some of those larger challenges. It's a community that has, unfortunately, higher levels of violent crime, in particular gun crime.
Despite Albuquerque's difficulties with crime, it remains an attractive place to live that has plenty of scenic spots, including the Rio Grande River that runs through the city.
This was an area that would have been popular with anyone who lives in the area that just wants to go outside of their house to a trail where they can run, they can walk, get some fresh air. It wouldn't be an uncommon place to see people exercising. It would definitely be a place where if you are out jogging or exercising, that you would want to just be aware of your surroundings. It could probably be a little bit remote. There's a good chance that you could be out there and never really encounter anyone, which unfortunately might make it a good place for a crime to happen.
On Christmas Eve 2015, a local woman decides to go jogging along one of the Rio Grande River trails.
Our victim was a single mother. She's an educator here in Albuquerque, in town. She's athletic. Running was something that she would do quite often. The area that she went running in was about as residential suburbia as you can get. Schools were nearby. There's a public library close to where the incident took place. And it was a trail that she was very familiar with because it's near her home. She could go out her front door and get onto this trail fairly quickly. and had run on it dozens of times prior to this incident. It should be safe, but unfortunately there's certain dangerous realities for a woman or a man to run alone in certain areas. And in this case, there was an absolute predator on the trail that day that there's no way she could have had any idea what she was going to run into. She heard somebody running behind her on the same trail very fast, and it kind of startled her. And it was a man who had these red pants on that kind of made a lot of noise, like swooshing back and forth. She lost sight of the man as he was running much faster than she was at the time, and she got to a particular fork in the trail. One part of the trail, if she stays on it, it keeps her somewhat elevated where she can see neighborhoods, the neighborhoods can see her, or she can cut off kind of into this wooded area that will lead her right next to the river. So a little bit more scenic, a little bit more peaceful and serene. And she's taken both trails in the past. In this case, she decided to take the more serene trail into the woods. She saw the man who had just passed her on the trail with the red pants, kind of standing up next to a tree right off of the trail.
And it caused her some sort of hesitation. She had an instinct that something wasn't right, and sadly that instinct was proven correct, that once she got closer to his location, he actually tackled her to the ground and dragged her into the bushes and sexually assaulted her.
He ended up pinning her down with both of his hands on both of her shoulders. He pulled her pants down all the way down to her ankles, but then also pulled up her shirt, exposing her breasts. During this ordeal, she was pleading, don't do this. I don't want you to do this. This isn't what I want.
He threatened to kill her if she made too much noise to alert anyone about it. She initially was screaming, but when he made those threats, she looked around and realized he can probably kill me and no one's ever going to even hear this or know about it.
She said that it all of a sudden kind of stopped, but she could feel that he pulled up his shirt and that he reached into his back pocket. As he reached into his back pocket, it appeared he pulled out a cell phone. At that moment, she said that she could hear what she thought was 1 to 2 clicks on his cell phone as if he was taking a picture.
She thought back to an actual self-defense course that she had taken for women that talked about if you're under attack and you're overpowered, a strategy to try to calm the attacker down so that you can at least escape safely at some point of the encounter.
After the assault took place, she was able to get away by convincing him to run in one direction while she was able to turn around and basically run in the opposite direction.
It's just a real testament to her composure and her courage to have the presence of mind to actually talk to the attacker afterwards. She was very right to be concerned that he might actually kill her or harm her further. And so she, according to her, told him that if he went in one direction, she would return home in the other direction, and sort of convinced him to leave her alone.
She runs back the exact way she came, as quick as she can towards her house. She continued to run home, and at that point decided that she did not want to call police, which is not uncommon with sexual assault survivors in many cases. But she did call a rape crisis hotline on the telephone to tell them what happened and seek their advice.
The Rape Crisis Center asks her if she can come in for a sexual assault exam.
Being Christmas Eve, this is a very unfortunate time for any of this to have happened, but when she got home, she arranged for someone to come and take care of her young child at the time so that she herself could get some help and get some treatment at a local rape crisis center.
She came and saw us for a same exam, and we were able to collect evidence, and she didn't choose to report to the law enforcement at that time. but you can always go back and report at a later date as well.
In the aftermath of an attack, many victims of rape find it difficult to report the crime to police.
Albuquerque Police Department is also, their sex crimes division is in our building, so it makes it very convenient. I think it's a lot more approachable. And so it removes some of the barriers that they might face to reporting. So we have about 10% more than the national average of victims who report to law enforcement, which is phenomenal. And so we absolutely always encourage people to report to law enforcement, but knowing that everybody's experience is different, justice looks different for every victim.
Usually after a victim has consulted with a psychologist, a psychiatrist, talked to their family, and really come to that decision on their own. Some victims are adamant about reporting to law enforcement immediately. Others want to have some time to think about how they want to move forward. And so the Rape Crisis Center is in a position to just support the victim and allow them to go through the process at their own pace.
Now that the rape kit has been completed, will the Bloodline detectives be given the go-ahead to track down this predator and put him behind bars? Christmas Eve 2015, a local woman goes for a run along one of the Rio Grande River trails in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She passes by a fellow jogger and instinctively feels nervous in his presence. Unfortunately, her gut feeling proves correct. The man re-emerges and tackles her to the ground before dragging her off the trail and viciously sexually assaulting her. Afterwards, the distraught victim goes to a rape crisis center and undergoes a sex assault examination, but is fearful to report the crime to law enforcement.
Her day-to-day life following this experience must have been very difficult in a lot of different ways, because this is something that a lot of people really struggle to move past. A lot of victims relive and re-experience what happened to them. A lot of them could be in fear, not knowing that their attacker is going to come and find them and do this or do something even worse to them in the future. So for this particular victim, she must have lived in great fear for a long time, not knowing where this guy was and if he's going to come back for her.
March the 7th, 2016. 3 months after the attack, the survivor bravely decides to share her story with the police.
The victim does decide to make a police report. So it's been, just about 3 months since the attack occurred. She makes the police report and it gets assigned to a detective at the sheriff's department right away to look into.
She, being an artist herself, was able to create a sketch of the individual who had attacked her and was really able to put pen to paper on how this person looked like from her perspective. She was able to describe him as being a younger gentleman, about 5'7". He was clean shaven, didn't have a beard or a mustache. He had brown hair that seemed to be sticking out of the hat that he was wearing. He also had brown eyes, and she described him as being athletic. He seemed muscular, of an athletic body type.
That sketch became such a key piece of evidence, and I'll tell you, in my 20 years of doing this, it's the only one I've ever had. I've never had a victim do their own sketch of their offender.
Equipped with this vital piece of evidence, investigators devise a plan to catch the callous attacker.
Typically, you're going to want to take a very detailed report from the victim, and all of the relevant details about what the suspect was wearing and their physical description were all very important. They're going to want to canvass the area to look for additional either victims or witnesses. They're going to want to examine prior police reports, unsolved reports about other sexual assaults. Obviously upload the data, the specimen, into CODIS to see if there's a DNA match through the national database to see if there are any leads that could be generated that way.
CODIS is a database that the FBI developed decades ago, where law enforcement at the state and federal levels put profiles of offenders into. Violent crimes like murders, armed robberies, domestic violence, sexual assaults, crimes of this nature get your DNA put into CODIS once you're convicted of the crime by a court. And if your DNA shows up on a crime scene somewhere else, it can be compared against CODIS, which can easily identify a possible offender. The thing with CODIS is it's not everyone who's arrested. That's not how it works. You have to be convicted. It has to be certain felony crimes that you're convicted of. And it only is going to look at people who have been convicted. So if you've never been arrested or convicted of a serious felony crime, you're not in CODIS. So we might have your DNA, but you weren't in CODIS, so we actually don't know who you are.
During the initial part of the investigation, the police worked very hard at looking at those that are closest to the victim. So they were out there speaking with all of her past boyfriends, anyone she had been in a relationship with, speaking with any of her male family members and friends, all of which ultimately were eliminated. And at the same time, they're also going out collecting DNA from these individuals and seeing if it matches the DNA that was collected at the crime scene, which unfortunately they weren't able to identify a match.
Just as the investigation seems to be slowing down, 3 months pass and the survivor believes she has seen her perpetrator again.
During the summer of 2016, this victim went into a local sandwich shop in town, and as soon as she walked in, she thought she encountered the guy that had attacked her several months earlier. So as soon as she saw this individual, she ran out and contacted law enforcement, saying she might have ran into him.
I was in my office. She gave me a phone call. She said, "I think I found the offender." I said, "Okay." So she gave me the information of what was going on. The person that she saw fit the description. Was about 5'8", 5'9", went to our local university here, and was a prominent athlete here, which matches the colors of what he would have been wearing. We ended up doing a warrant for him at his dorm. So we ended up doing a body warrant on him. We ended up doing a warrant of his dorm as well, where we ended up taking his cell phone. Once we confiscated his cell phone, we ended up doing a warrant on his cell phone to extract the information on there, because we're looking for pictures as well. Since in the initial interviews, she said that there was pictures taken of her. We extracted his cell phone. We didn't find any pictures of her. We ended up doing a swab for him for DNA. We got all that information, sent it back up to Santa Fe for them to do a test. We got his DNA back. Once we got his DNA back, it was also negative as well for the DNA that was sent on the rape kit.
It is a devastating outcome for the survivor who thought she had identified her attacker.
The case eventually went cold when everyone that the police had interviewed, including ex-boyfriends, friends, had been interviewed. DNA had been collected. The guy at the sandwich shop had been interviewed. Once all of that didn't lead anywhere, investigators were really sort of stuck at square one, which means that the case unfortunately went cold.
She made a comment that said, "Well, at least we tried, and I know that I can move on now knowing that we tried the best we could to find this person." And at that moment, it kind of hit me to say, you know what, I'm not satisfied with what we're doing. We have to do more because we have to find this person. It almost seemed to me like she was happy with what we did, that we tried our best, almost as if she was ready to move on. But to me, it just, I wasn't satisfied. I went to the DA's office, and that's when I talked to them and I said, what can we do? There's something we need to do to help her. What can we do? And at that moment, there was nothing. But now I know that it planted a seed, put something in their mind to know that if something came up later on, that maybe we would have a chance to catch this individual.
The seed of hope that has been planted is a forensic technique that has solved hundreds of cold cases across the globe. Forensic investigative genetic genealogy. Can this emerging science finally put this predator behind bars? Christmas Eve, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 2015. A local woman is out jogging when she's attacked and viciously sexually assaulted by an unknown male. The distraught woman happens to be an artist and provides police with a sketch of the assailant. 3 months into the investigation, she believes that she has seen the rapist locally, but the identification proves false. Now police are hoping a cutting-edge forensic technique can finally identify the attacker.
One of the things that we were trying to do was to really establish a proactive and professional investigations team that really didn't exist before. There were certainly investigators in the office, but they weren't doing the kind of cutting edge work that I thought we were capable of. And so what we established was something called the Crime Strategies Unit that really tried to not replicate the same capacity that the local police agencies had, but to do special analytical and data-driven work that oftentimes local police agencies just didn't have the time or expertise to sort of invest in. But I also wanted to make sure that we were doing some novel work on trying to solve some of the unsolved cases, some of the cases that had gone cold over the years, both homicides and sexual assaults. And, you know, when I first started reading about how the case in California involving the Golden State Killer and others was put together, and the work that was done on forensic genealogy, it seemed like an ideal fit for this new team and this new unit. And so I reached out to the head of that unit, Kyle Hartsock, who's just a tremendous natural-born police officer.
First and foremost, to do a forensic genealogy case, you need a sufficient amount of DNA. You know, you can't just run it off of any amount of DNA easily. This case had it. So it met that minimum qualifying amount of DNA that was left behind. 2, our victim was still alive. This wasn't a homicide case. This victim was alive. To give her the best chance to tell her who her offender was and let her feel that little bit of safety that police were able to solve that crime, and possibly even get justice in court, meant a whole lot to the entire team, from the original detective to me to the prosecutor's office. And the area it happened in was somewhat less populated. One of the beliefs I had early on was our offender probably lived nearby. This was not a highly popular running trail where hundreds of people a day go running on it. This has maybe 10 people a day at most, with the perfect weather, run on it. So that our offender was probably very, very local to the area and very familiar with the area. This wouldn't be somebody traveling through town that would pick this area. It's too remote. So that meant that predator was still in my community, and that's what I wanted to find.
That's when we really started to get things going, and we immediately started trying to identify the right genealogical experts, the right laboratory to work with to get this work done. We did a lot of research, and CSU did a lot of research on how the cases in California and the Golden State Killer was put together and sort of replicating those sorts of things.
So what exactly is this forensic technique that has been cracking the coldest of cold cases?
Forensic genetic genealogy, also known as investigative genetic genealogy, is the process of taking unknown DNA, typically collected at crime scenes, uploading the DNA to DNA databases, such as GEDmatch, hoping to find a family member who's related to the person that they're ultimately searching for, the suspect in a crime.
It could be this person, but it could be their brother, right? It could be a close first cousin of theirs or a half sibling. We still have to put our detective shoes on and do everything that we're used to doing, which is good interviews, right? Surveillance, collecting physical evidence, tying this whole case together. We need a beginning, a middle, and an ending of a story, because one day we're gonna have to explain this to a jury. The family tree is gonna point us in a direction, and then we do what we normally do.
Investigators search on GEDmatch, a website built for genetic genealogy research.
We actually had 3 college interns for the summer assigned to my investigative unit. And they were young and hungry, and they just thought, anything we can do here is going to be cool and helpful. I said, we are going to learn investigative genealogy. We are going to learn how to build family trees. We are going to buy the Ancestry.com accounts, and we're going to do this. Here's a YouTube video series on how to build a family tree. We're going to go really hands-on with this thing and get it done. And they loved the challenge. It was a lot of fun sleuthing social media profiles and newspaper clippings from decades ago to build out these family trees, knowing that on any given day, this could be the day we get our bad guy.
However, there are limitations. Users must opt in to allow law enforcement to use their data.
Just over 3 or 4 months building out many family trees, conducting interviews, and one day a new profile was uploaded that was opted in for law enforcement, and it was a second cousin. And it stuck out like a sore thumb when you logged into GetMatch, and we would log into GetMatch daily. When I contacted the person, because I wanted to learn more about their family tree, I actually met Dr. Kimmy Price. She contacted me back and said, I'm the one who uploaded this profile. I'm a genealogy researcher on the side, and I talked to my client, told him that you reached out, and he is willing to let me help you guys in the investigation, considering I already know a lot about his family. So that is actually how we met. It wasn't us looking for a genealogist. We stumbled upon one while we were doing our search, and she was amazing.
About an hour and a half later, after I'd sent the email, I received a phone call on my cellular, and it was Commander Hartzog and some detectives, and they asked me a flurry of questions to determine my experience. And then they became very quiet and asked me if I would consider helping with the cold case. Oh, heck yeah. I was thrilled to be able to do that. The match for the family friend to the perp was about 94 centimorgans, which ballpark is third cousin. A centimorgan is a measure of how much DNA is shared between individuals. A parent-child will share between 3,500 and 4,000 centimorgans. Brothers and sisters, about 2,500 centimorgans. First cousins, around 1,000. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, about 1,600. There are ranges that vary for the relationship level. Third cousins share great-great-grandparents in common. And each individual has 8 sets of great-great-grandparents. In this case, on the father's side, there would be 4 sets of great-great-grandparents. And going back to that time and place, large families were the norm. It wasn't unusual to see family groups with 10 children apiece. And so by the time I had finished building out a family tree for the father's side of the family, I was looking at 6,500 individuals. It was a lot. What I had to do once I had finished with that was try to find a way to exclude parts of that tree to narrow down possibilities. So what I began looking at was individuals who matched a family friend, but of course had no match to the perp. And by doing that, I was able to whittle it down to a single set of great-grandparents.
She filled us in on what she had found on, his second cousin's family up to that point, which included roots that go back to parts of New Mexico and southern Colorado. So it was a true collaboration on a near daily basis, going back and forth. She did this all for free, by the way. She would work on this in her off hours, in the evenings, on weekends. She would email updates when she had them, and we would do the same back with her until Dr. Price found an obituary for a 2-year-old. And that cracked the case wide open.
Will this obituary lead to the arrest of a sexual predator that tore a woman's life apart on Christmas Eve? Albuquerque, New Mexico, police are investigating the 2015 sexual assault of a local woman who was viciously attacked by an unknown assailant while jogging along the Rio Grande River. Despite the tireless efforts of both the survivor and police, all leads run dry and the case goes cold. Now investigators turn to an emerging crime-fighting tool, forensic investigative genetic genealogy. In building a family tree of the perpetrator, they've identified a promising lead, an obituary of a child.
In this obituary from a newspaper in Albuquerque around 1996, 1997, it mentions that a 2-year-old had lost their life, and it listed the surviving family members of the 2-year-old. The surviving family members included people directly in the family tree of our offender. That's how Dr. Price was focused in on this obituary. But it mentioned a 2-month-old younger brother who had survived, someone by the name of Angel Duran. Angel Duran, at 2 months old in 1996 and 1997, would have put him at pretty much an ideal age range from our offender and related to our offender. When we searched the name Angel Duran in all the systems that we're able to search, we could not find anyone with a birthday close to the one in the obituary with that same name. The obituary mentioned that the 2-year-old big brother of Angel had actually been murdered by his dad, which was very sad and tragic. Having worked crimes against children here in Albuquerque for decades, we know that siblings of murdered children are often put into foster care and possibly even adopted. And if they're adopted, they might change their last name. We went back into our databases, and instead of searching Angel Duran with a birthday around 1996, we just took the last name out. We said, tell me about people named Angel, born in 1996 in the Albuquerque area. And within seconds, we found somebody who matched that description, Angel Goulet, and when we looked up his address, he lived about less than a quarter mile from where the sexual assault happened in this neighborhood. And, you know, hair stood up on our necks, and we were so incredibly excited that we think we might have found our offender.
Excited by this new lead, investigators set out to track down their suspect.
I remember getting a phone call from Kyle Hartsock, and he was pretty excited. I could tell on the phone that he and his team believed that they had narrowed down the right suspect, and it wasn't definitive yet because we had to make a point-to-point comparison. We weren't going to build a case simply on forensic genealogy. We actually needed to make a one-to-one match on a freshly collected sample of DNA. And so he came to me and said, we think we have the right person, and we would like permission to conduct surveillance and see if we can obtain a new DNA sample.
We found out that his wife was in the hospital for a relatively routine procedure. She posted about it on social media. When we saw the post, we went to the hospital really kind of in the nick of time because they were checking out. They were leaving, and they had been in one of the hospital rooms by themselves. Once they left, I told my agents, make sure that they leave the hospital like they're done, they're not coming back, this isn't just a walk around. It wasn't. They got picked up by a family member and completely left holding their belongings. The prosecutor that was helping with the case said that is abandoned property now, anything they left in the room. And we took 2 styrofoam cups, like the kind of cups the hospitals have to give you ice and water. There was 2 cups in the room. We took both carefully, placed them in evidence bags, and overnighted them to our lab to get DNA tested as quick as they could.
The DNA test finally provides the answer the Bloodline detectives have been waiting for.
We got our man. That's it. Case closed, without a doubt. The DNA is matching Angel Goulet.
Police spring into action to arrest Angel Goulet.
In January of 2020, the agents from our office executed a search warrant and looking for evidence of the event, of the crime itself. They actually took Mr. Goulet into custody, and after a short period of time, he confessed to the crime.
Once I showed him the test results pointing to him as the offender, he finally admitted in his own head he had no other choice here but to admit he was the one that did this crime. Can you tell me about that day?
That day I was running, I don't know what I was thinking. And she came running down, and that's what happened. And that's, I ran behind her, and then, that's what happened. I took her clothes off me.
When did you get the idea that you were gonna do this?
I didn't, honestly, I didn't know what was gonna happen. Like, this is me, oh, this is me. This is me, I'm running this way. Then when I get to this like little alley kind of place, it's like little roads like this, and then I went down this way, and she's running this way, and then I stopped, there's a tree.
John, however you need.
And that's where I ran, and then this road, there's a tree. I stopped at the tree because I was getting a breather. Didn't know anything was gonna happen. And she followed me down here and then went back around through the bosque. Like, there's no reason why she would have went that way. And so I came and then I ran that way, and then of course, yeah, that's what happened.
Did you take a picture of her?
I think so, but I don't.
Where's that picture at?
It's deleted. I once I realized what I did, like, I was like, wow, this is gonna come back to me. Like, I don't know what the I was thinking. And I deleted the picture, and then I was like, I went to go back to look for her, apologize, and tell her that I was sorry and everything. And I don't know what I was thinking, and that would never happen again. Like, I don't even run down there anymore because of what happened. I was like,
Would you like to write her an apology letter? I'll give you a blank sheet of paper and the pen.
of course.
Angel Gurule runs investigators through the events of that Christmas Eve afternoon.
I wanted him to show me exactly how it happened. Again, part of that goes to the credibility of his statements. Only 2 people knew what happened that day, right? One is the victim, but she only saw parts of it. The other one was our offender. If he truly was our offender, and I believed he was, I wanted him to show me exactly what he did. I wanted to know his thought process through it, and I wanted to record it on video in case we had to have a jury decide one day if he was telling the truth or not to the police about this attack. They could actually watch him do it in the environment. It happened to work out too. This was early January. So environmentally, this area looked identical to how it did in 2015. There's no leaves on the trees. It's wintertime, right? The ground is a little bit more bare. How much you can see through the trees is going to change from the summer to the winter. So I said that I told my team there was no better time than right now to have him do this for us, if he will. And he agreed to do it. He literally walked us through it. He showed us the approximate point that he saw her, where he ran by her. He took me to the exact trail and what he believed was the tree that he was leaning against when she ran by. He was able to point out where she was on the trail up ahead when he decided to commit this crime, to take off sprinting. He walked me over to the approximate area where he tackled her to the ground and committed the sexual assault. And the entire time I'm asking him, very almost news media type interview with him. Tell me what you did next, right? What'd you think right here? And he seemed to be very credible and very forthright with explaining what he remembered and where it happened. And so I felt his statement was incredibly credible and truthful at that point.
Now police have a clearer insight into the mind of Angel Gurule.
Angel Gurule did not have a very checkered criminal past. He did have a few police reports in our system. One was having an inappropriate sexual relationship with a minor, like a teenage girl when he was 18 or 19, which was actually within several months of our attack. The case wasn't followed up on by the detectives, and nothing happened. There was actually a chance for DNA to be tested in that case that he left behind. It wasn't tested. Had it been tested, it might have been in CODIS. We might have actually had a hit, or the sheriff's department would have had a hit way back in 2016 right away, but that opportunity was missed.
He had a traumatic past, which is very unfortunate. And I know a lot of times people have mixed emotions in situations where it's a younger perpetrator and they have had trauma. And the thing that I always say is, when somebody has been traumatized, that's an explanation for their behavior, but it's not an excuse.
I would describe him as a sexual predator. He is someone that clearly has abnormal desires and quite possibly has abnormal fantasies that on that particular day he acted out on. And given the chance, he might do it again.
I don't think he had a motive. I think that it was just it was a crime of opportunity. I think he was there. I don't know what was going on in his head at the time, but I think that at that particular moment, he saw a woman that he found was attractive. He's out in the middle of nowhere, and unfortunately, he took advantage of that.
Openly confessing to his crime, Angel Gurule enters a plea deal, which significantly shortens his sentence.
Before his case ever actually reached the point of going to a trial in front of a jury, Angel agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors in which he was agreeing to plead guilty to 2 counts of sexual assault instead of taking his case to trial.
He pled out. He was looking at a possible, I think they said 80 years. He pled out to 12 years in prison. Our victim has to live with this the rest of her life. She has a life sentence because this is something she has to live with the rest of her life. Do I think a life sentence is what he deserves? Part of me says yes.
The survivor addresses her attacker during sentencing.
The victim told Angel the same things that she'd been telling us ever since he was identified. While she doesn't feel bad for him, she wanted him to get help on the things that had haunted him, and she wanted no more violence to occur and hoped that his time in prison can help him find that path.
I think that when a victim sees the person who hurt them sentenced, sent to jail, there is a large sense of closure. But that doesn't mean they're not going to wake up and deal with the consequences of that trauma for the rest of their life. Right? Like I said, they're going to learn and they're going to grow and they're going to heal and they're going to become beautiful people. But that doesn't mean they're not going to have to deal with it. But I think that that's a really important step in being able to close that and maybe move on to the next chapter of their life.
She's a victim that I'll always remember for her strength throughout really many, many parts of this case. Once you look at how terrible the attack was, she continued to show resilience and strength and determination several times over several years, all the way to the sentencing. She was truly one of a kind as a victim, but also resembles what a lot of victims go through.
That said, we can never restore her sense of peace. We can never eliminate the effects of trauma. Those things will last a lifetime and will linger for a lifetime.
Investigators reflect on the successes of this case and what the future of forensic investigative genetic genealogy holds.
This is the first case in the state of New Mexico that used genetic testing to solve a crime is huge. And for me to be part of it, it means a lot to me.
This case would still be cold without forensic genealogy playing a critical role. I have no doubt that we would still be sitting here today with a victim who would be struggling still to put her life back in order and no sense of who this person was or where this person was. It was a proof of concept for myself and for our agency and for the investigators that we had discovered an entirely new tool to try and solve some of the most difficult cases that we have.
People should never give up. People should never give up on a case. They should never give up on an identity. They should never give up on a loved one. Because there are people like me out there and there are more coming. And as the technology improves, it's just going to get better and more cases are going to get solved.
I think if you were a sexual assault survivor, this spoke volumes. This told you, and police don't give up, right? We're not going to give up. Prosecutors aren't going to give up. We always want to find who committed this crime. We need to unmask them. We need to make what they did transparent to the community. And so I think this showed a great bout of confidence to our community that we are very capable of doing this, and we plan on doing it forever.
Xin chào tất cả quý vị các bạn, hôm nay mình xin giới thiệu cùng em khoác chiếc áo tới ra đồng, dù trời đổ nắng chang chang vẫn khoang để nghĩa tình đừng nhạt đừng phai, thương nhau rồi đừng cởi áo cho ai. Thuyền tình tôi cứ lênh đênh dòng trôi, và người con gái tôi yêu nơi làng quê, có ai ngờ chân lắm buồn mà tôi ngỡ gót chân tiên. Cắt nửa vầng trăng, cắt nửa vầng trăng, tôi làm con đò nhỏ, chặt đôi câu thơ, bẻ đôi câu thơ, tôi làm mái chèo nước sông, đưa tôi về, đưa tôi về với người tôi yêu, để cùng hát khúc dân ca quê mình, để tôi sống giữa bao nhiêu ân tình, bao ân tình mộc mạc làng quê, trưa nắng hè gọi nhau dân gian trẻ xanh, cùng em khoác chiếc áo tới ra đồng, dù trời đổ nắng chang chang vẫn quang để ân tình đừng nhạt đừng phai, thương nhau rồi đừng cởi áo cho ai. Thuyền tình tôi cứ lênh đênh dòng trôi, và người con gái tôi yêu nơi làng quê, có ai ngờ chân lắm buồn mà tôi ngỡ gót chân tiên hơn, để cùng ngâm khúc dân ca quê mùa, để nghe tiếng sáo thanh thang cánh cò. Đã có lần em dần hơn tôi, đêm ra đồng em đổ ánh trăng vàng đi. Nào ngờ chẳng chút nguôi ngoai hương buồn, vầng trăng lại sáng trong hơn đầy đồng. Câu ca rằng hết dần rồi thương, áo nâu xong em nhuộm tình tôi. Nào đâu dễ có phôi phai thời gian, còn đây mai khung ca dao em và tôi. Chốn quê nghèo ta có mình, một ngày bằng mấy trăm năm hơi người.
That is our client there.
Yeah.
So that is the bag containing the drugs.
The police descend on him.
It's such a large amount of drugs. Street value, it could be about £1 million worth. What on earth is this man doing?
It is your life that is on the line. It's your liberty, it's your freedom.
You could be facing a life-changing custodial sentence.
Inside the world of barristers, at the front line of justice.
Put your hand up forward. Mate, you're under arrest for GBH.
Victim runs off to the right.
Off the CCTV.
Right hand on waist.
It could be us, because it would be off camera.
But these barristers aren't looking for who's guilty. Their mission is to defend.
There has to be some system where people's rights are protected.
We all should empathise with people who are victims of crime, but that doesn't mean that people who are accused of crimes shouldn't have a fair trial.
Don't shoot, just don't shoot.
There has to be a balance, and we fight fearlessly for our clients.
It's just a robe and it's just a wig, but it's almost as though it provides some form of protection. You walk into court and you feel, okay, I'm ready for battle now.
The only conclusion that you will be able to reach in this case is one of not guilty.
Thousands of criminal cases, a justice system at breaking point.
Whatever they've been accused of, I might be the only person that's actually on their side. And maybe it's the ultimate underdog fight.
We all have one thing in common. We all want to pursue and be a part of the pursuit of justice.
On February 23, 2020, in North London, the driver of a white Mercedes reported being the victim of a violent carjacking. Robbed at knife point, and his car stolen after he stopped at traffic lights. An extremely rare crime in the UK. Police soon arrested two men who were found driving his vehicle. On them, they found a knife, a screwdriver, and the owner's driving licence. Defence barrister Leon Nathan Lynch is representing one of the defendants.
To speak on people's behalf in the criminal justice system, I don't hold that lightly at all. It's a privilege. I'm naturally a defender, and there's always two sides to every argument.
His client is accused of robbery, possession of an offensive weapon, and going equipped for theft. A father of two, this isn't the first time he's been in trouble with the law.
I was brought up in a church, and I went private school. And I ended up going the wrong way, and that's been committing crime, to be honest. My first daughter, I spent most of her life in prison. She didn't have a male figure in her life at all. Like, she's 17 now, and I don't really know her. I'm very, very worried about it because my second daughter, she's literally a month old. If this goes wrong, then I lose time with my child.
With his trial 1 week away, Leon's meeting him at court to discuss the version of events he's provided, known as the defendant's instructions.
What would be your thoughts?
A bit stressed, worried, and nervous.
Leon's client claims it wasn't a carjacking. Rather, the driver paid him and his co-defendant to fake the robbery so he could claim the insurance money. Like all defense barristers, it's not up to Leon to determine guilt or innocence. That's for the jury to decide. His job is to serve the justice system by providing his client with the best possible defense.
You say in your instructions that this is not a robbery, this is an agreement to remove his car for insurance purposes.
Yeah.
And what were you going to get out of all of this?
£500.
So we're here in Wood Green Crown Court.
For £500, I know. I was going through a bad time in my life.
I hear that. We need to make sure that for this daughter, you're around. Because the reality is, you know, if you're convicted...
Substantial amount of time.
Substantial. We're looking at years in prison. There's a number of previous convictions here which a jury will hear, which they're going to obviously form a view about your character. But remember, you don't have to prove your innocence. It's for the prosecution to prove your guilt.
Temple in central London is one of the UK's leading legal districts, home to offices known as chambers. This is where some of the country's top defence barristers are based.
All right, lovely. And just keep trying her, obviously, just keep trying her, because I know there's a chance she won't be. I know she's been...
What the applicant told the police was exactly what he went on to tell them after his arrest.
From murder to drug smuggling to armed robbery.
I separated the applications to exclude the videos from the knife.
I see.
Their job is to give clients specialist legal advice, sometimes preparing their cases over weeks or even months, before fighting for them in front of a judge and jury.
I'm the person who stands there in the wig and the gown, presenting the defence case on behalf of my client in the courtroom. That is what I do day in and day out. But that is the role of the barrister.
What was your intention? Why did you do this? I know that not all my clients are going to be acquitted, but I want to be sure that if they are convicted, it's because they should have been.
If he didn't have a knife, then he's taken the wallet with force without a knife. And if he did have a knife, he didn't use it.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that innocent people aren't convicted of crimes that they haven't committed. That is the thing that upholds our system of justice. Because the moment we start convicting innocent people, well, then everything falls apart.
You came upstairs this morning very early while I was doing work this morning. You came upstairs this morning.
No.
You've been upstairs as well very early in the morning, but what did you do this morning?
Although they work as part of a chambers, most barristers are self-employed.
Can you spell your name? Okay, we're going to have to do some work. So what I just really want to focus in on is the file. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know, and how much material there is in relation to the file. That's what...
For Matt Radstone and his fellow defenders, that normally means relying on solicitors for work. The solicitor meets the client first and assesses their case.
Solicitors are there from the very, very start, from the moment a defendant is arrested.
Correct, I agree, absolutely.
They take their instructions and they present the case to me, the barrister. And so the role that the solicitor plays is totally and utterly indispensable.
Hi, Catherine, how you doing?
I have a new case.
Yeah?
It relates to connections to the drugs conspiracy.
Yeah.
He's a taxi driver
Right.
and has been found with 10 kilos of cocaine in his boot.
10 kilos of cocaine in his boot?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's all obviously come as a very big shock to the family.
I'll have a look at the material and perhaps we'll have a chat tomorrow and work out where we're going to go.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so much.
The defendant, a taxi driver who runs a private hire firm, was arrested by undercover police after two suspected drug smugglers used him to courier a parcel containing cocaine worth £1 million. He and the men have been charged with conspiracy to supply Class A drugs, an illegal trade that's radically increased in the last decade and for which the penalties are severe.
The prosecution was saying this was a sophisticated, high-level conspiracy to supply significant quantities of cocaine that had come into the country from abroad.
Let me get the CCTV.
And that my client was involved in the distribution of that cocaine down through the food chain.
And here he is here.
Somebody that was charged with an offence of this level, of this seriousness, would be facing a sentence of, at the very least, 10 years in prison, if not more.
The taxi driver accepts he took a courier job to deliver a parcel for the two men. However, he says he'd never met them before and was told the parcel contained money.
Initial thoughts are, what on earth is this man doing, allowing 10 kilos of cocaine to be placed into the back of his car?
Well, he says that on the initial phone call, I was asked to deliver a parcel from Chessington to Blackheath. I was told it was cash and, no further questions were asked. I was thinking, well, is that normal?
So that's the bag of drugs. Ends up being put into the client's vehicle. And these two guys are said to be acting together. So these are co-defendants. Right. So we see them go around the corner and then... So hang on, so there seems to be a break in the footage.
There's clearly a gap because he then appears in his vehicle.
Right. So that is our client there.
Yeah, he's in a bright red t-shirt. He's almost kind of like hanging out the window.
With 10 kilos of cocaine in his car.
He's definitely not trying to conceal himself.
And then...
the police descend on him.
They've obviously been tipped off in relation to the transaction.
After months of surveillance, undercover police suddenly swoop in, recover the cocaine and arrested Matt's client and the two men.
Bags taken, obviously opened.
So that is the bag containing the drugs. This is a serious problem, It's such a large amount of drugs. What do they say the value of the cocaine is?
Be about 400,000, wouldn't it?
Street value, it could be significantly more, I think. It could be about £1 million worth. He could be facing a life-changing custodial sentence.
I've got solicitors breathing down my neck. It's difficult to let people down. Tell me, I'll end up mad if I'm not already, which I am.
This train has aimed coaches.
You just need to work out this conference.
Today, Matt Radstone's having his first meeting with a taxi driver who faces 15 years in prison for conspiring with two other men to smuggle £1 million worth of cocaine.
What I always say to my clients is that you have to be able to speak to me openly and honestly. Talk to me on the level, tell me what's going on. And so building a relationship of trust between yourself and your client is extremely important. How you doing?
Hello. How are you?
Good to see you. You well?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Hi, Catherine. So, my name's Matt Radstone and I'm your barrister. If you do that, it gives you the best opportunity of a successful outcome.
Solicitor Catherine O'Rourke is helping Matt prepare for the trial, which begins in 2 weeks. Matt's client claims he didn't know his co-defendants and thought they were putting money, not drugs, into the back of his taxi.
Give me step by step.
Right. They was waiting for me when I pulled in.
Understand.
So I've drove in and see them two standing on the corner.
Yep.
As I pulled in, my boots opened more or less straight away.
Yeah.
As soon as I parked up, he must have walked straight up behind and opened my boot, put the bag in the boot shut, and I thought, well...
Did you get out?
No.
Is that usual for you not to get out?
Well, no, it's say I was in a rush.
Before he could drive away, undercover police pounced.
When I was pulling out the car, he shouted out, slow down, so I'm going to follow you. That's when he dropped, basically. Yeah, putting two and two together, and they come out and fired, I don't know how.
Okay.
Well, the reason they've come out with 5 is because you've got 10 kilos of cocaine in the back. You've got 10 kilos of cocaine in the back of the car, which is a problem. Okay. What you've just told me is essentially that you were acting completely innocently. You're a taxi driver, and that you were doing a job that day, and you had no idea that what was going to be ending up in the back of your car was drugs. All right. This is a jury trial. What that means is that 12 people from the local community are going to be the people who try you, who decide whether you're guilty or you're not guilty. Key is to remain calm at all times.
If what he's telling me is not credible, he's wasting his time. And the consequences of wasting his time is that he'll be found guilty if in reality he has no defence. It is your life that is on the line. It's your liberty, it's your freedom.
The police have found a drugs telephone number which is offering to sell drugs.
I'm going to discuss this with Paul, and then I'll get back to you.
There's some things about it that are raising alarm bells with me.
Yeah.
For more than 400 years, the area known as Temple in central London has been home to legal offices called chambers. Here, leading defence barristers work alongside solicitors on multiple criminal cases at a time. And it doesn't help when there's a backlog of almost 60,000.
And it's like an emergency. Like, I need this answer.
Thank you for coming back at short notice. We don't just turn up at 10 o'clock and sit and leave at 4. We start our preparation months in advance of a case. We've got a number of months before we get to trial. We've got three and a bit months, okay? When the trial is running, we're at court well before the case starts, and we're preparing well into any given night of that week, on the weekends, and so on and so forth. Darling, ask Grandad to take it out for you and put it in the lemonade, okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. We live, eat, breathe, and sleep this job. We sacrifice and commit to defending people charged with really serious crimes, and we do it uncompromisingly. There is really only one thing that's important when you're defending, and that is making sure that you do your absolute best to defend your client.
How many hours does it take to find a flipping printer?
Go back and check.
No pages from this document were selected to be printed. What does that mean?
That's okay.
21, I think I've cracked it, Leon. It's 28.
She's cracked it.
For Leon Nathan Lynch,
I tell her it didn't work.
being at the bar, the term used for working as a barrister, can seem a world away from where he grew up.
I feel like I'm between two worlds sometimes. On one hand, I've got my friends who grew up in and around East London, and then opposite end, I've got my friends at the bar. Yo!
Fashionably late, as always.
Long time, counsel, how are you?
I'm very good, how are you?
I'm well.
A fellow barrister and East Londoner, Kate Rixtina, is someone Leon often seeks advice from on serious criminal cases.
The work that Kate and I do is intense.
86.
And sometimes you're going to talk about some of the things that you face at work. This is the place.
Okay.
Leon has asked for Kate's input in his carjacking case. The trial has just begun. His client and another man are accused of getting into a Mercedes that stopped at traffic lights, robbing the driver at knife point and stealing his car. But Leon's client claims the attack was staged. He says the driver asked them to fake the robbery and let them steal the car so he could claim the insurance money.
It's a deal that went wrong, and I've become a robber from doing someone a favour. And now I'm the bad guy, with my life on the line.
And now his claims of innocence might be given a major boost. After researching the car involved in the incident, Leon wants to test the same model because he believes its door-locking system could undermine the prosecution's case.
Mercedes has a particular locking mechanism And when the car stops, you can't open the door from the outside. It can only be opened from inside the car. How can it be that these individuals ran up to his car when it was parked at a traffic light and entered in the back of the car?
I pray to God this car doesn't open.
Okay, here goes nothing. I'm pulling it quite vigorously as well, you know. Oh, it opened.
Yeah. No, it opened because I opened it. So he's right.
Yeah.
He's right. But let's say for example, if the rest of the complainant's evidence makes sense.
Okay.
But there's 2 car seats in the back of the car. So the angles in which child car seats, so the angles in which they would have been maneuvering around with the knives, according to the complainant, again, that can't be right.
So we're moving past the point that the car wouldn't have opened. So
Sure.
you've opened the car.
I've opened the car.
So what, this way around?
Yep. And over like this, and holds him here like this.
Okay.
Yo, don't squeeze the suit though. Jeez.
Hey, we're reenacting. It's more important.
No.
Okay, so hold
Not
there.
my French suit, you know. Right, yeah. And the knife is in that hand.
Okay.
Right. So the knife is being held across him like this.
You realise this makes there's a car seat in the way.
I'm just telling you what the complainant said. I know it makes no sense, but I'm just saying that this is...
Yeah, this is hard.
Because the angles are really difficult.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
So if he comes in through this side, that's your client.
Yeah.
Even then, like,
But
to get to you.
Yeah.
And to get, if I then have this hand here, like, this is ridiculous. Question though.
Go on.
If your whole purpose of getting into the car is to rob the driver,
Yeah.
why on earth would you be going through the back seat, through the back of the car? Well, both of them must have been let in, all right?
Yeah.
That's fact. They must have been let into the car.
So the pupillage fair is an opportunity for future barristers to grow their professional networks.
To become a defence barrister requires a degree, a year's studying for the bar, and an intense training period known as the pupillage, a process that can see hopefuls rack up tens of thousands of pounds in debt.
These relationships will be invaluable to you throughout both the pupillage but also at the bar.
And for those that make it, there's a daunting task of going into court to represent clients in front of a judge and jury.
When I walked into court for that first time, I was petrified. I spent the whole weekend preparing for it. I think I said 3 words, like, "Thank you very much, sir," and my legs were like jelly. I will never ever forget those moments because it's what you've been working towards for all those years.
Oh, my first day, I loved it. I was well up for it. I mean, it was like this, and then there were moments where it just went back down like that, like the bad days. But yeah, we're newly qualified. I was so stoked.
It feels like an arena. You have your judge who sits there like a Roman emperor, surveying the people before him. And you have your jury standing there as well, and you're battling with people. You're battling, you're arguing, you're presenting evidence. Because if you're in a Crown Court representing someone, the stakes are high.
Do you ever remember making a big mistake?
Me make mistakes? Never happened. Call my lawyer. Never happened.
One of the newest recruits to the bar is Lady Jeannie Vaskovits, who recently completed her pupillage.
I would ordinarily also make lunch to take along because you can't rely on the canteens in whatever random court you're going to.
She's now on the front line of criminal defence.
I've got so much work on, 7 trials. So you always have this expectation of just going over and above every single day. So you're working 6 days a week, and then you've got Sunday to like wash and iron your clothes, maybe eat, maybe see your boyfriend who happens to live in your house but you haven't really seen.
You've got a busy day?
I've got a busy day, I'm getting stressed. And it's impossible. It really is. I'm going. See you later.
See you later.
Junior barristers, like Lady Jeannie, work on shorter cases that can last just one day or even less. It means she often doesn't meet defendants or learn about the crimes they've been accused of until they're about to appear in court.
Jesus, okay, so today I've got 3 hearings on, so I'm a little bit anxious today. It's gonna be chaotic. It's either gonna all work out, it's gonna be brilliant, or it's gonna be me crying by 3 p.m. But we'll see. We never know. The purpose of today's hearing is for you to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, okay? So you're charged with an affray, so it just means that you used or threatened unlawful violence, and your conduct would have caused somebody to fear for their safety.
The evidence against Lady Jeannie's client seems overwhelming. CCTV shows him attacking another teenager who had threatened a girl.
One of the boys obviously hit a girl. I don't accept that for no one, no matter who you are in it, so I just reacted from that.
You could argue self-defense. The reason why it fails in your case is that it's just, put bluntly, you just went over the top. Yeah. You can see yourself in the video. You followed him, you taunted him, you said yourself, you called him a pussy. You said, if you're comfortable hitting the girl, are you going to hit me as well? So it's way, way out of self-defense. So I would not advise you to try and run that at all. I think you accept the evidence against you is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think it would be in your best interest to enter a guilty plea today. Yeah?
That's what I was thinking.
And just have it over and done with. Now, the benefit of entering a guilty plea is that when courts see that people recognize that they are wrong, they do get credit for that. So you may still be able to get a referral order. And a referral order, it's an undertaking between you and the youth offending team to make sure that you don't engage in this kind of behavior anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. In fairness, he never said he had a defense. He's like, this is why it all started, but it completely escalated and I put my hands up because this happened, I did this and I did this, and none of that was necessary. I've had clients before who like look at the CCTV and still are like, no, but I didn't actually do that. I'm like, but no, it's not true. Oh, okay, okay. But no, he was grand. He was really sensible. So I have some sushi on the train while I read my case papers for the next hearing, which I still don't know what it is yet properly. And then I'll see. Probably have a clue by the time I arrive.
Not all cases are so cut and dry. Matt's drug conspiracy trial is underway, and as well as CCTV evidence, it involves hundreds of pages of defense and prosecution statements.
When you're in that case, you are completely and utterly consumed. We're talking about during a trial, getting up first thing in the morning, preparing for the day, coming home, preparing at night for the next day. That is a relentless period of time, doing hours and hours and hours worth of work because you're considering what the bigger picture is. So there's always strategy that you're trying to think about and to employ, but the amount of work that goes into it is absolutely vast and significant.
Matt's client has been charged with conspiracy to supply £1 million worth of cocaine, alongside his 2 co-defendants who are accused of placing the drugs in the back of his taxi. But Matt's client says he didn't know the men and thought the parcel they put in his taxi contained cash.
It was a parcel. It could have been any driver allocated the job to, and would have gone and done it and been in the same situation as I am. Imagine getting up, going to work one day and then ending up in a police station and doing nothing wrong. Absolutely terrified of going to prison. Don't even want to think about it. Just can't even imagine being in that situation. I just don't think I could cope.
Tomorrow, he's expected to give evidence. The prosecution will leave no stone unturned to undermine his defense. And Matt and solicitor Catherine want to check every detail of his account.
In terms of the job, how much did you quoted?
£100.
And when were you due to receive that?
Well, drop off. That's what I mean. You don't get paid until you drop the parcel off.
All right, now, obviously you're charged alongside co-defendants. Now, my understanding is you don't know any of those co-defendants, is that right? Never met them ever before. We're not going to find out there's ever been any communication, am I?
No, it was on the 29th that he phoned me in the evening.
Yeah.
Missed the call.
Right, but it wasn't anything that call that evening made you think there was anything untoward going on at all?
No. The next morning the phone's rang. He said, oh, how long before you can get to Chessington? I said, about an hour. He said, oh, can you FaceTime me? That was a bit strange.
It's not good.
No. Well, I can't remember if he asked me to FaceTime him then or when we was in the car. But I actually wanted to see what I look like, so don't give to the wrong person or whatever I'm picking up. Because he hasn't gone through the office.
It's gone direct to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is really, really important information. If that had come out and I didn't know about it, it's destructive.
Yeah.
The fact that multiple FaceTime calls were made to the taxi driver from the drug dealers poses big problems for his defence.
Is that concerning? FaceTime calls?
It's a bit odd. I mean, you wouldn't FaceTime your taxi driver.
No, I don't think so. You know, FaceTiming a taxi driver 10, 11 times is, well, it's potentially more than that. 6, 7, there are 8 that go through. I mean, it's still out of the ordinary. It's such a large amount of drugs that your instincts would be, well, he must know or have an idea of what's going on, because the people who were doing the delivery, they'd have to be trusting somebody. If we can build a picture that this was literally wrong place at the wrong time, you know, it alters the strength of things.
There are always things that come out in criminal trials that the most experienced of practitioners themselves will never have seen, because we're dealing with people and no case is the same. It is going to be hard to explain to a jury how they can conclude anything other than he must have known. But at the end of the day, he is an innocent man in the same way as we all are innocent until proven guilty.
It's another hectic day for Lady Jeannie.
I finished in Basingstoke. I'm on my way to Westminster Magistrates Court.
She's en route to defend a man who's accused of defrauding his bank to the tune of £70,000. And she's waiting to be served or provided with the court papers, documents that outline the prosecution's evidence against her client.
I don't have any papers. What's supposed to happen is that the papers are served like at least the day before the hearing, so that defense counsel and solicitors can look at them, read through them, take a view and advise the client. Where I'm like, well, are we going to adjourn the hearing? Can you just let us know in advance what's going to happen? Because now you've got my client who's already in court. I'm running a bit late. He's already in court waiting around. And I'm going to arrive and maybe have papers, maybe not have papers, maybe wait another hour or two before we get papers. Inevitably, as soon as the court knows that I have the papers, they'll be asking me every 5 minutes whether I'm ready. Let's go.
Just half an hour before she's due in court, she finally gets the information she needs.
I got it by email, so let me speed read before the hearing. Barristers in general, I think, appreciate the tube Wi-Fi because it means that when you're served with papers, you can actually read them. It wasn't 200 pages as I was anticipating, it was just a summary, so it's okay. Because I'm going to take the client through things specifically, but I have enough of an overview to be able to advise him. You always have to advise on the law, the evidence, the strengths and the weaknesses, possible defenses, sentence allocation, and matters for today. Yeah, it's fine, it'll be fine. It'll be all right. Pupillage was 19 months, so I had 19 months to get used to this. Okay, let's go. We are late.
The case is going okay. Don't get me wrong, I've seen people in worse situations than he's in.
Leon's carjacking trial, in which is being held by fellow barrister Kate Vixina, is in its final week. His client claims he and his co-defendant faked the robbery as part of an insurance scam. In the coming days, each of them must decide whether to give evidence If they do, the prosecution can cross-examine them about their account of what happened.
We're linked because our narrative is that we were on this together and it was an insurance job and there was no robbery.
Right. By the sounds of it, you have a very good case to say there's not going to be a conviction.
If he can give his evidence well, I think it's winnable.
But when the co-defendant decides to enter the witness box, his version of events completely contradicts the account given to Leon by his client.
The co-defendant had tried to do our client a favour, to totally paint him out of the picture. He wasn't involved, he wasn't even there. And you know, to a certain extent, that might be quite noble. The problem is, though, he was there. He was just saying, when I was there, it was an insurance job.
As I always say, there's much to discuss. Things didn't quite go as we expected.
As soon as my co-defendant went on there, everything just changed. From the first words, I could tell that it was going wrong. So I think he was really nervous.
Yeah, today was a curveball though. He's effectively said in his evidence that Mr. wasn't even there.
Leon's client now needs to decide if he wants to go ahead and give evidence himself. If he does and contradicts his co-defendant, his credibility could be at stake. But it's a decision that only he can make.
The decision to give evidence should always be for clients. And I can only advise on the benefits of giving evidence and maybe some of the problems they may face if they do give evidence. The problem is, if you don't give evidence, there's nothing for the jury to consider other than what the prosecution say.
If you feel like you do not want to give evidence, you don't give evidence. If you reckon that you need to give an account that is different, which is also a possibility, it's always going to be a matter for you.
It's such a stressful day, giving evidence.
Oh, definitely.
Matt's drugs case is drawing to a close, and his client, who could face 15 years in prison, has been cross-examined by the prosecution. Despite grilling him about his FaceTime calls with the men who put cocaine in his taxi, no evidence has emerged to show that drugs were ever mentioned during their communications.
How can they convict an innocent person? If it comes back guilty, I'll be finished. I'm not involved in any way at all, apart from him ringing the cab, and that's it. I believe in the system, and this will be the truth if the system works or not.
He was in tears for the first part of that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And I think it was, having to stand up and talk about it is stressful, but also what he's been through over the past year and a half with lockdown and effect on his business, and it's all obviously, culminated in this. It's
devastating. Speech tomorrow.
Yeah.
The jury will be reminded when we make our closing speech that he doesn't have to prove his innocence. The prosecution have to prove the case.
Yeah.
Before the jury are asked to consider their verdict, both the prosecution and the defense will make their closing speeches. A crucial summary of their key evidence and arguments.
He's 55 years old. Daughter. He told the jury about his daughter. A lot turns on the closing speech because there are many strands to pull together. £1 million worth of cocaine placed in the back of his taxi. Yeah. The pressure is significant. This really is a case where the closing speech can be potentially decisive. The prosecution bring this case, and what that means is that the prosecution have to prove it so that you are sure. If you were to metaphorically look at yourself in the mirror with your hand on your heart and think about the evidence in this case,
Can we be sure of my client's guilt? The fact that he has taken the walk into the witness box and looked at you and told you that he is not guilty. Ask yourselves whether or not you think the account that he gave you was lies. Bear in mind those very short phone calls for which there is no evidence about anything that was said, nor indeed is there any messages suggestive of his involvement in Class A drugs. Think about those things with care. And if you do so, the only conclusion that you will be able to reach in this case is one of not guilty.
After his co-defendant gave a different version of the alleged carjacking, Leon's client has chosen not to give evidence and avoid questions from the prosecution.
When he doesn't choose to give evidence, you can almost feel the eyes of the jury looking at your client, homing in on him, and the questions are running through their mind. Why would you not give evidence in a trial where these allegations are so serious against you? Obviously, the judge reminds them that it's their right as a defendant not to give evidence. But he also explains to them that they may draw a particular inference on that. And that inference is what's dangerous.
Having heard closing speeches, the jury are considering their verdict. If found guilty, Leon's client faces years in prison.
One of the first things I remember feeling when I went into prison for a legal visiting for the first time was, this doesn't feel safe. Just dirty, like falling apart. Like, my clients always talk about the cockroaches in prison.
I'm more worried about my daughter because I want to get to go home to my daughter. The last thing I've seen her is just in the cot. But with Leon, I feel like he's actually fighting like we're both on trial.
The service for London, Liverpool Street.
Makes me feel like he's my friend.
Can't second guess how a jury come to their conclusions. I've seen juries walk into courtrooms smiling and laughing, then deliver a verdict, convict everyone. Equally, I've seen juries come in and be stone-faced and they acquit everyone. You can never guess. So hopefully, we've got enough.
After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury had made up their minds.
This is the part of the job that I hate. Verdicts that don't go your way.
They found Leon's client guilty of robbery, possession of an offensive weapon, and going equipped for theft. He's sentenced to 5 years and 4 months in prison.
I'm absolutely gutted. But I'm more gutted for his partner and for him. Serco van taking Mr. back to Pentonville. Hitting the glass, letting us know that he can see us. To go from freedom to being in prison is, yeah. Never get used to that. No. But all you could hear was the thump, 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 thump of his hand.
The jury in Matt's taxi driver case had been considering their verdict for more than a day.
There is nothing, no matter how many times you've done a case, that prepares you or makes you feel any better about the time you spend waiting for a jury. You're on tenterhooks. You don't hear from them, you never find out about their conversations. That is sacrosanct, it's over to them, and you just simply have to wait. And that is very difficult to deal with.
When they finally reach a decision, it's unanimous. Facing 15 years behind bars, they found Matt's client not guilty.
When they come back with 12 not guilty, it's like, it was just such a... And I just collapsed. And then he said, oh, you can go. I can't even explain what was going through my head and through my body. I haven't got away with nothing, because I wasn't guilty in the first place.
His two co-defendants who placed the cocaine in his car and who were represented by a different defence team have been found guilty and sent to prison for 8 and 12 years respectively.
Beyond my expectations. I mean, it was a fantastic result. When the jury went out, I really thought it was going to be a close run thing. So when the verdict came out, it was fantastic. The client broke down into tears. You know, it was just huge relief all round because he was looking at a life-changing sentence.
I felt it could go either way, but I was always confident of the truth. Whatever the prosecution threw at me, I was able to answer straight away because I didn't have to think about it, because I was telling the truth.
When I saw the police with their guns, I've panicked.
Driver, slowly open the door!
One man's future hangs in the balance.
If you get over 12 months custodial sentence, then you're subject to deportation.
And a brutal stabbing
There it is, it happens, I see it. Look, right hand, right round.
tests the defenders to the limit.
It's the single most damaging piece of evidence in the case for us. We have to fight tooth and nail to demonstrate to the jury that he was not guilty of murder.